1, 2, 1, 2. How's everybody doing tonight? Good to be around family once again. Basketball getting started this week, and I want to welcome everybody to reMARKS. Love the name, by the way. reMARKS, a conversation with Nets general manager Sean Marks as we talk about the season that we've seen thus far up to the All-Star break and looking forward to what's ahead and what should be a very, very eventful end of the regular season and hoping for a lot of success as well. I want to thank everybody here at Barclays Center who's made their way out. We have folks that are watching on Nets.com, the Nets app. Folks are watching on social media and on the Yes app as well. I'm Michael Grady from Yes Network, and again, joined by Nets General Manager Sean Marks. We have fan questions that we're going to get into. We appreciate everybody submitting those. We're going to get to as many of these questions as we possibly can. Let's start off by just recapping this last handful of weeks. There was a big trade, y'all. Big time trade orchestrated by Sean. New players brought in: Ben Simmons, Andre Drummond, Seth Curry. Got a couple of picks in the deal as well. Renewed energy from the group. Hard-fought game against the Miami Heat. They come up short. They snap an 11-game losing streak against Sacramento at home, which was huge. All the renewed energy. Seth played well. Drummond played well. The whole team looked good. And then at the Garden, 28-point comeback. How special was that? Cam Thomas with a tremendous fourth quarter with 16, had that big-time dagger three-pointer. It's always great beating the Knicks, especially at MSG, but when you come back from 28 down, man, that was sweet. Next night, again, came up short in a loss to the Wizards, but a lot of renewed energy as we start this stretch to final 23 games of the regular season. So let's get underway, and we'll start with first question for you, Sean. And given everything I just described, how would you describe the last 4 months and the state of this team right now?
Calm, quiet, subdued. No, eventful, honestly. We're learning all the time. So anytime you have to go through the roller coaster ride of an NBA season and what we've, embarked on 4 months ago, it's got its ups and downs. And it's through some of that adversity and through those down moments that you know who you can rely on, who you can put your arm around, who you can ask questions to, and who's there to support, and who's in this for the right reasons and so forth. So definitely a lot of ups and downs, but I was just telling Michael before, I just left the gym. It was our first practice back after All-Star, and you could feel an exuberance, you could feel a different vibe. Guys are hungry to get back after it. It's tough when you've had 4 or 5 days off, and there's some new siblings in town, and guys want to rekindle relationships and so forth. So it was exciting to see a lot of the conversations that were going on today, for sure.
Let's talk about some of the new guys. We'll start with Ben Simmons, that big trade at the deadline. What have you liked about Ben Simmons' game up to this point in his career?
Yeah, I mean, no secret. He's an elite NBA basketball player. We've had our eyes on him for quite some time. Truth be told, his versatility stands out. Just what he can do on the court, both ends of the court, offensively and defensively. And I think it's how he fits with our group, what we need, where our holes are. I mean, every roster has certain holes here and there, and you're spending not only the off season, but you're spending the trade deadline trying to plug those holes, trying to see, okay, that didn't quite work, or this does. And not only the addition of Ben, as you mentioned, but the addition of Andre and Seth and now Goran, they all fill some needs, and some glaring needs. But it'll be great to have those guys around. I mean, you go into Goran for a little bit, battle-tested, tried and true. The shooting for Seth, the defensive rebounding presence that Andre brings, just a big body out there. And back to Ben, he can lead the break. A guy that can grab a defensive rebound and go in there, and everyone else just fill the lanes. So I don't know if he's a point guard, I don't know if he's a 4-man, I don't know if he's a 5-man, but I do know he's a hell of a basketball player. So we're excited about him.
It was funny how it's come full circle, and I'm happy he brought up the Jared Dudley moment during his press conference, and I spoke to Jared Dudley about that recently too. How funny is it, talk about full circle, that the foundation that you were laying down, that Jared Dudley was a part of, eventually leads to Ben Simmons joining for a championship push?
I mean, Jared's probably been a lot of full circle moments around here, but all those players that were here now, their fingerprints are all over the culture that we're bringing, and we're constantly building and so forth. So a guy like Jared to be part of that, to be in our first playoff game with this particular group, and now we hope to embark on a long playoff run.
What excites you most? You mentioned he can play the 1, he can play the 5. There aren't many players, not just in the league now, but in league history, that you can say that about. How much does that excite you about what he brings to this squad, and Ben?
Oh, absolutely. Just to have that versatility, and I'm going to keep harping on the versatility that he brings offensively and defensively. It's going to be a matchup nightmare for other teams. There's no question that he's already proved that he can do that. So, and it takes a little bit of the load off of Kevin. Maybe it puts Kevin in a different light. Maybe it puts Kyrie in a different set of circumstances where, they don't have to handle the ball all the time. They can get out there and run the wings, and vice versa. Ben can run those wings. I mean, we see how fast he is at spreading the floor and so forth. So, I think if we're coming at waves like that against the opposition, playing with pace, that should prove good for us.
No one wants to trade a player of Harden's caliber, but in doing so, and bringing in a Ben Simmons, and now let's talk about Seth Curry and Andre Drummond and what they bring to the table, and as you mentioned, plugging in holes in terms of what you feel this team needs.
Yeah, you're 100% right, and nobody wants to trade, James Harden or a player like that. Those are not easy decisions to come about, but at the end of the day, we had to do what we thought was best for this franchise, and also best for James. When James and I had these honest conversations that I've told you guys about, and we set the tone and said, look, all right, that's fine. Like we'll agree to part ways, but it comes at a cost, and that cost, thankfully for us, we were able to bring in Seth and Andre, and they again plug holes for us. There are some glaring needs for what the roster needs and so forth, and they've been there too. They're a little bit battle tested, right? So we definitely need as much shooting as we possibly can. So now adding Seth to that lineup, that'll make it harder and make it obviously harder for the opposition, but it makes it easier for guys like Kyrie and Kevin and Ben to be spraying that ball, left and right and kicking it ahead to guys like himself. And we've talked ad nauseum through the media here for sure about our lack of rebounding. So to add a player like Andre in here, who not only rebounds but really clogs up the middle, and I think you've seen in his short time here already, he's a great passer, much better passer than people really sort of appreciate him for, and able to really catch in the low post, get an offensive rebound, and fire it out to these shooters out on the court, so that'll help us.
And I've also seen some of the guys really talk glowingly about the screens that he sets also. Big time.
That's a big man to get around.
That's a big man to get around, no doubt. Yeah. Now, you touched on this already, but big announcement that was made official today. Goran Dragic, who could have gone to a number of different contenders around the league, picked up by the Nets. What is your vision for how Dragic fits in with Brooklyn?
Well, I really should be asking Steve what his vision is, because I have to give full credit to Steve on this one. Without a doubt, we were with Goran in Miami over the weekend, spent a little brief time with him, and it was really intriguing to me to see the relationship that Goran and Steve have. The respect they have for one another, and really the respect that Goran had for Steve for many years ago. We won't give Steve the actual age here, but the fact that he was his vet and rookie, that's a unique relationship there. So to watch those two tell stories together, it was certainly refreshing for me to sit back and almost just envision of things to come. And Steve has another ally on the court there. We know what Goran can do. He's tried, true, and tested, fierce competitor. And in the meeting, it was very clear why he wants to be here, and that's championship. That's it.
I'm sure he has to get physically up to speed, but the fact that those two played, again, as you mentioned, a little ways back, almost 200 games together, how much does that help his learning curve in terms of understanding what this team is doing out there on the floor?
Absolutely. Goran already has a little cheat sheet. He's already been there. He's going to know the relationship and the respect level between the two. And just having a high IQ player out on the court alongside the guys we already have will certainly speed up that learning process, that learning curve for all our new guys, because that takes time, like with any organization, when you're adding new pieces in.
Now, there's so much excitement, and I'm sure you get this all the time. Anybody who works with the organization gets this all the time. The number one question is, when will we see Kevin and Ben on the court? Is there any update you can give us in terms of their, the word we like, ramp up, their ramp up process?
The buzzword for the moment, right? All I can say is I left the gym right before coming over here, and I could see those guys, on the court doing their individual workouts, and the pace with which Kevin, for one, was going at it. It's always remarkable to me how he, is just trying to master his craft. Absolutely incredible, inspirational, to be honest, and to have been on the same court at him at the same time, going through his ramp up, was impressive. Depending when they go, we've got to see how they respond to days like today, and we'll go forward with this. It's probably going to be tough, to be honest, to be playing in the next three or four days, but we'll see how it all plays out. I'm certainly not going to bet against either one of those guys.
Now, Chicago is lifting their mask and vaccine update on February 28th. How optimistic are you that Kyrie Irving will be available for home games before the end of the season?
Yeah. Well, I have to be optimistic, like everybody here. I mean, I think we all know what's at stake here. I think if you turn on CNN or BBC or Fox or whatever your flavor is, you see how everything's changing, right? And I don't want to, obviously I'm part of the Commonwealth, and I was watching the BBC the other day, and it's looking vastly different over there than it is here right now in terms of their mandates and so forth. But I think we can see each city, and whether it's city, state, they're starting to change the rules. We're starting to see a sense of normality again, getting back to life. We have to go on. There's enough people that, vaccine rates are obviously high. So I am optimistic. I have to be optimistic. I mean, I think that's the only way to look at this.
While the team has waited to get whole, and again, it's felt like 2 seasons in one with the health and safety protocols and with all of that, plus the injuries, the team has had to rely on this rookie class. And I remember going back to training camp, there was, uncertainty as to how much these guys would actually see action this year, and all 4 have contributed in one way or another this season. Let's talk about these rookies and what you've liked from starting with Cam Thomas and then Kessler Edwards, Day'Ron Sharpe, and David Duke Jr.
They've all been very impressive, very impressive, and it's been refreshing for them to really seize the opportunity that they've had. I mean, they're thrust into playing in, NBA games, maybe positional fits that they weren't quite ready for or weren't quite expecting. Cam, I think we know he lacks confidence, so he's struggling out there at the moment. But a young man like that, when you get to see what he does at LSU, and then you sit with him for an interview, and you get to really get to feel for what he is, and then now it's sort of growing every single moment he gets on the court, and he's becoming, a really bona fide NBA player. I know he's got a long way to go, and he'll be the first to admit that, but he's like a sponge. So, and all these guys are really a sponge, and they're hanging out with these vets that, you could argue you get the best vets in there. It's like having other development coaches. So yeah, that's a unique set of circumstances we have, because I know for Kevin, for one, loves to be contributing and giving back to these young guys. So Cam has been great for us, and we see him really working at his game. Day'Ron, to me it started, besides the fact that we saw him in North Carolina, in the interview with him. I mean, I don't know if you guys have really had a chance to meet him, but an incredibly bubbly personality. He lights up the room. Really a unique individual and a fierce competitor. I mean, somebody that I didn't see that all the time in college, because you don't see it until you're in the locker room or you're around him. But Day'Ron's been great. He's not afraid to use his body. I think his game has a long way to go still. And then, Kessler and David have both contributed a ton, and probably far more than we would have expected our two-way players to contribute. Both guys have started NBA games. They're probably pretty shocked to that, but again, we can see them continue to grow, and they're bona fide NBA players, and they'll have hopefully long careers ahead of them.
They've been seeing a special show with Kevin Durant when he was out there on the court. Had to be in the MVP discussion, leading the league in scoring before the knee injury. How special has Kevin been, not only on the court, but off the basketball court with this team?
You know, I don't know that I can put it into words. I haven't seen many players like that. I was fortunate prior to my time in Brooklyn to be around some obviously some elite players, being a journeyman. So just, you know, watching Steve Nash, watching how he prepares for games and so forth, and how he takes care of his body. Watching Tim Duncan and Manu Ginobili and how competitive they are. Chris Paul and so forth. You know, Kevin is like that. These guys want to master their craft. They don't just want to be good. They want to be elite. And you watch how Kevin approaches, you know, even a day like today where he's been off for All-Star Weekend and I know we talk about this a lot, but it's something I have to say again. Every single rep is at game speed, you know, and that's not easy to do. I mean, you or I do 1 or 2 reps at game speed, we're seeing a chiropractor out the back or something. But, you know, Kevin does it, you know, over and over and over again. And that's why, you know, now we watch him in the game, and it would be great if you guys could see him sort of behind the scenes. You see him in the game, and, you know, I've only known him for a couple of years now. You go, I've seen that move 2,000 times. And it does it every single game practice, and it transfers right to the court. So great lesson for the young guys out there.
As you await Kevin's return and Ben Simmons' debut, what is it that you want to see from this team fresh out of the All-Star break?
You know, I think we all want to see a competitive bunch. I think that's what we've got. I'm more interested in some of the things that happen behind the scenes, like the conversations that are happening. You know, I obviously won't be privy to them, but I love watching guys go off in their little huddles, 3, 4, 5 guys, maybe even away from the court, because these are where relationships are formed. You know, it's you guys will all see it on the court, we'll all see it transpire there, where guys get on each other, hold each other accountable and so forth, but they're allowed to do that by what happens off the court, what happens behind the scenes, the conversations that Steve and the rest of the coaching staff have with these guys, and they've done an amazing job of trying to form bonds. So that's the thing that I'm excited about, because, you know, come May and June, those bonds and those relationships and the conversations that are happening right now, that's when they play out.
The trade, you know, going back to the 90s and the rivalries that we would see, the physicality or whatnot, folks still love that. Going to the trade with Philadelphia, how good is that for the game? There's no guarantees that Brooklyn and Philadelphia see each other in the postseason, but how good is something like this for the game? Because that's a gutsy move right there to say, all right, we'll take this piece, you take that piece, and we'll see you down the road.
You're telling me this is the last one of these we do? Is that what it is? No, in serious notes, I think it's great for the game. You know, we always want a competitive league, and I think that's what we're seeing. You know, over the course of these last 2 years, you know, there's not 1 or 2 teams that can do this. There's 8, 9 teams that all have the same vision of being that last team standing, like we do. So Philadelphia they've moved their chips in the middle. You know, we've done the same. So, you know, you have to be slightly lucky, without a doubt. There's no question there to see, you know, how it all goes from a health perspective and so forth. But, you know, we did this trade because we feel like it helps our team. It helps what we need not only this year and going into the future. And again, Philadelphia did this because they feel like it helps their team right now.
So much excitement. What are your expectations at full strength, this Brooklyn Nets squad?
Championship. I mean, what's up? And I would be doing 17 players and another 60 staff members over there a massive disservice if I said anything other than that, because that's what we're all here. We have an incredible ownership group with, you know, Joe Tsai has, talking about putting your chips in the middle. I mean, he has supported us and continues to support us. So from that standpoint, you know, we know what our expectations are.
As far as cohesion is concerned, what kind of a challenge is it building championship level cohesion with 23 games remaining?
You know, absolutely. I think our biggest dilemma is probably going to be, you know, that cohesion, chemistry, the bonds that are formed, getting as many minutes as we possibly can. You know, I don't know how many games these guys are all going to play together, but I think we saw it, you know, play out last year where, you know, there were half a dozen games they played together. We do not want to be in that same boat. So as many minutes as these guys can play together on the court, and also for the coaching staff. I mean, this has not been an easy year for the coaching staff where I think we've had 33 plus lineups out there, leading the league in lineups, and nobody wants that record. We don't want that. So, but it's given other people an opportunity, and they've seized it, which is great. But over the course of these next 23 games, we need to be building continuity, chemistry, both on and off the court.
We talked about the offense and wanting to see the ball moving and having pieces in place that really help with that to make the offense so dynamic. We know you have tremendous scorers out there, but what gets you excited about what you guys can be defensively?
Well, I think now with the addition of Ben, obviously a player like that who can guard multiple positions, I've seen him up close guarding point guards and thinking, Ben's as big as me, and he's out there guarding a guy, 6 foot tall and keeping up with him and wreaking havoc. That's impressive. And you add him and his length, with Kevin, with the likes of like Nick Claxton, with all the. So there's ways we can close quarters, close games with a defensive-minded lineup out there. That's exciting. Obviously, the addition of Goran, tough, hard-nosed, competitive defender. So there's a lot of guys out there, and because we know some of our tried and true guys, Bruce and so forth. So we're going to have to hang our hat offensively because that's who we are. But again, some of those holes that we managed to plug here come at the defensive end without doubt.
Continue with these fan questions. A storyline that's a fan favorite this season is the bond that you've already mentioned between Kevin Durant and Cam Thomas. What have you enjoyed about this mix of veteran players and young players on this roster?
I think the banter, the back and forth. When you can see that on the bench, the young guys are not afraid to speak up. The young guys are not afraid to sort of give it back. Now, they do know their place, don't get me wrong. But at the same time, I think that is where I see Kevin maybe at his happiest, when he's able to give back to a young guy like Cam, who again is not afraid of the moment, who has stepped up several times this year. And I think Kevin enjoys that. Kevin enjoys that a lot. And I shouldn't just speak for Kevin, but Kevin and Kai and Joe Harris, all these guys who, whether they're in the game or out of the game, are giving back to the younger guys that are out here, which has been fun to see.
With Cam and the instinct and the willingness to take and make big shots, and I don't even have to say make. Taking is tough enough for a lot of guys in the league. Is that something that is just in you? Is that something that you saw on tape at LSU? He obviously had a game winner in Summer League. Let's toot that horn a little bit in terms of what you saw.
Well, to be honest, yes, we saw it at LSU. We definitely saw it at Summer League. But I have to give his mother some credit here, because talking to his mother, I know where he gets the confidence from, and she is military background, and Cam better shoot that ball. Miss Leslie's amazing, and we've enjoyed our conversation. So it's going to be fun to see how Cam continues to grow and continues to get better.
Let me ask one question from your playing days. Who were some of your vets when you first entered the league?
Well, I was Charles Oakley's vet, rookie. Sorry. So there's another time for some other stories on that one, but. Oak and I are still very close, and I loved him because he taught me a lot of things. Just about how to prepare, how to take care of your body, and how to prepare for the game. He didn't back down, as you guys know, from any challenge. So, he and I still have conversations all the time, which is great.
Outstanding. All right, now you have a couple of players from Australia now on the roster, and you're not far from that part of the world, for sure, New Zealand. How cool is that bond?
Well, between the Australians, it's great. Like Australians and New Zealanders, there's a divide, so it's not that cool between.
It's not that cool
with us. So, no, in all seriousness, it's fun. There's good banter going back and forth. We do have several Australian performance team members as well, so I'm outnumbered. So I think I'm going to have to bring in some, more southern hemisphere New Zealanders to sort of make up for that. But it's great. I think not only bringing in people from different backgrounds, different countries, diverse upbringings, that all helps, because I've said this before, if everybody was 6'10" from New Zealand, it would be a really boring group. So we need people from a vast variety of backgrounds, because we're developing people here. We're not just developing basketball players, and I think that's really important, where you're in the confines of the locker room where conversations are being had that they'll remember 20, 30 years from now, not just what happened on the court, but we're educating and they're educating each other. And Patty, for one, is terrific with that.
Let's talk about Patty for a moment. I mean, he's been kind of an Iron Man this season. He's already setting career highs with minutes, three-point field goals made, attempted. He's been huge for the team. Even when things have been down, he's been huge with the guys. Just how impressed have you been with what, I'm sure not surprised, but how impressed have you been with what Patty has brought?
Yeah, well, very impressive. I'm not surprised. He actually told us that during free agency. He said, look, I'm coming in here with the Olympic Patty mentality where, I'm going to let it fly. I'm having fun. I know what's at stake here. I know the goals that this organization has. So, he's been terrific. He's been somebody that really, Steve has been able to lean on. Obviously I have. But we've all gravitated to Patty. He is such a charismatic personality. It's electric. People want to be around him. And he's just so welcoming. There's far more to Patty Mills than just a basketball player, and he's a damn good basketball player.
You talk a lot about culture, and what role do the players, the coaches, the front office, what role does everybody play in bringing that to fruition, the culture that you want and envision here?
Yeah, again, every opportunity you get to bring somebody else into this and into the organization, whether it's a player, a coach, performance team member, what have you. You see our plane flights and you see how we all interact on the plane flights. That's important. It's not just about 15 individual basketball players. This is a team effort. It's always going to have to be that way. So people's fingerprints are all over this. Certainly 5.5 years ago, maybe it started with me, but for now, we have everybody's fingerprints, every player that's come through here, every coach that has come through here, they've added something to this, and it continues to evolve. I think people, when they say, I've heard it a couple times, people say, well, our culture's fixed, and I look at them and say, well, your culture's never fixed, it's never done. Your culture's constantly evolving, and we have to evolve with that. I don't necessarily consider myself an old man, but at the same time, I'm 2 generations removed from the guys we're drafting, in some ways maybe 4 generations, but at the same time, I have to continue to evolve with them, and our culture's evolving the more players we bring in here, and also with the expectations that we have too.
We mentioned the Kyrie situation a little bit earlier. How have you seen him handle that situation in being a part-time player, but the way the guys have responded, the way the guys have handled the situation and kept the ship moving?
Yeah, well, I think for the rest of the team, they have continued to move. They haven't, and it would have been easy to sit there and say, hey, look, we've got an elite basketball player, unable to help us, unable to be here. And I think they've said, look, whenever you get back, whatever it takes, we'll just continue to keep the ship moving in the right direction. I've had a lot of really good conversations with Kai, and so has Steve, and I think we would both agree that he wants to be out on the court worse than anybody else. He wants to be contributing. He wants to be part of this. And it's also just being a part of that locker room. When you can't be a part of that locker room and you're having to watch it on TV and you're not traveling with your comrades, that makes it difficult. That's tough. So hopefully sooner rather than later, this group is together and continue to build and climb.
Let's talk about this coaching staff. Steve Nash, second year, some new guys on the assistant coaching staff. What have you been pleased with from this group?
Well, they've had to manage so much adversity. Every day we come out there, and I don't want to make an excuse because they'll be the first to tell us that they're not making excuses. But when you've had 33 lineups that you're having to coach throughout the season, that's tough. When you're never sure, who is going to be available and for what reason, whether that could be COVID mandates, or it could be through some injuries that we've had. So it's been difficult, but I'd also think through that adversity, we've seen some other people be able to climb, really seize that moment. And that actually has helped the coaching staff too, because they've been thrust in some pretty tough predicaments here. So, you want to talk about growth. I've seen the entire coaching staff grow and continue to grow, continue to find their voice, continue to find their coaching voice, and that's been fun to see, and it'll pay off down the road.
And we're talking about unprecedented predicaments when it comes to health and safety protocols. How big of a challenge has that been with, even on your side too, 10-day contract here, 10-day contract there to kind of keep everybody together through a tough time?
Yeah, it has been tough. But again, I think the whole league, the whole world, everybody's going through this. Everybody's job has been affected in some way or another. So, I think I'd be doing a lot of people a disservice to sit up here and say, poor us, right? I mean, we're doing something we love to do for a living. We can't wait to get back to doing that with a little more continuity. There's no question there. But, I mean, we all know how our workplace environments suffer when we're not around our peers. I can just tell you from the front office perspective, they know how tired I am of Zooms. I'm over it, and I thought it was great to have that capability, but there's nothing like sitting there face to face and having accidental collisions beside the coffee maker and not having to schedule a meeting just to say a few words. So I'm looking forward to all of this like everybody else that's being behind us.
Let's talk about these fans for a moment. We have seen tremendous crowds at Barclays Center, and not just at Barclays Center, but even on the road. The fans have been traveling and in the building. Obviously, it's not far to go to MSG, but y'all showed out at MSG for that game and that comeback. How much has this fan base meant to the team?
It's been remarkable because I used to come back here as a visiting player or visiting from a visiting team standpoint, and I would see Barclays, and you would be impressed with the building, the lights, the music, and everything else, and so forth. But then when you come in here and you start seeing the fiber and the fabric of what Brooklyn is made up of, and what the borough is made up of, and you having our fan base from New Jersey and New York has been, that's been impressive, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. When I first went to MSG 5 years ago as a GM, that's a scary place. But you would almost play Where's Waldo, where the Brooklyn fans are, because that it's hard to get a seat there. You just you couldn't find a Brooklyn fan over there. It was difficult to it. I have never seen anything like our next game. That was something I will remember for that was impressive. That was impressive, and there were some fans by us standing up, yelling, screaming the entire time, and there is no way we come back from down 28 without that Brooklyn group that was there. So kudos to you guys. That was absolutely amazing. So thank you.
Given everything that you've been through here and the team that you put together, tweaked, added pieces, the tough times, and talking about the fan base, how much would it mean to you personally to bring a championship to the borough?
Well, obviously, that's the ultimate goal, without a doubt. I just will correct you a little bit there, because it's not me that put this team together. There's a ton of people behind the scenes that, unfortunately, you guys have to look at me, but behind here, there's 60 other people that, give everything they can, for the Nets. So that's impressive. But, to be able to win it, to be able to bring something to this borough, like the reason why you guys are all here, you want to see something special, you want to see something that's sustainable, and that's the goal in mind here.
What is your message as we get ready to close? What is your message for this fan base?
Well, personally, I've been here 5.5 years. I know a lot of you guys out there and a lot of the people in this building, the 18,000 in this building, have been Nets fans for decades. So I've been waiting a long time, and I've put blood, sweat, and tears into this, but it pales in comparison to what you guys have done. So I really appreciate it, and it comes from myself and ownership and the coaching staff and players. We really appreciate. We appreciate hearing you. We appreciate your support, without a doubt, and I don't just say that as a token thank you. It's impressive. Every single night we come out here and see the fan base growing and as loud as it is, and all I'll say is buckle up, hold on, it's going to be one hell of a ride.
And last thing for you, I know the fans marvel in it, but you and your team putting the team together, how awestruck are you at times watching Kevin perform the way that he does, watching the acrobatics from Kyrie Irving and the other guys on this roster?
I'm like you guys, I'm a fan, so it's fun to watch. It's fun to watch, it really is.
And let's hear it for Sean Marks.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate all of you. I want to thank you all for coming out. I want to thank everybody at home watching on Nets.com, social media, the Nets app, and the Yes app as well. We appreciate you all. Thank you. Thank you for joining us this evening. Thank you, Sean.